Hello, I'm Rex and welcome to Babel Planet. The date is December the 25th, year 180. It's snowing everywhere. A young carpenter and his wife are spending the night at the stable of an inn, surrounded by young, sweet shepherds, three wise magi with lots of expensive gifts, and beautiful angels sing in the background, all celebrating the birth of the Messiah. Everything about that story is wrong. Every single detail. And trust me, it's not for the reasons you think. Do you want to hear the actual story of the first Christmas? Stay tuned for this week's episode of Translation Convention. Let's begin with the obvious. Jesus was not born on Christmas Day. There isn't an exact consensus on where he was born, but most historians place his birthday around... Wow, that's interesting. The biblical story only says that he was born in the days of Herod the king, and though archaeologists are not sure when that was, the most popular idea is that he died around year 4 BC. You heard that right. Apparently the birth of Christ was, at the latest, in year 4 before Christ. Furthermore, most academics believe that it was between the months of April and September, since shepherds taking their sheep to the field to the middle of the desert at night would result in many dead sheep and not so much herding. So while you're dreaming of a white Christmas, the people working that night would probably want to hit you with a stick for singing that song. Now that we mention shepherds, you're probably thinking of the little drummer boy or something similar. Just cute children taking care of innocent, harmless cattle. But this was not how Hebrew culture viewed shepherds at all. This image came much later. Ironically, it only came into existence because of Jesus, creating an interesting case of cultural translation. We can consult other parts of the Bible to confirm it. In 1 Samuel 17, another famous shepherd gave us a really colorful job description. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. This is the same shepherd who later decapitated the local equivalent of Jason Momoa and cut off the foreskins of 200 soldiers, all in his quest to become the most famous king of Hebrew history. Throughout several biblical stories, we can see shepherds fighting bears, lions, wolves, and thieves, and all the time using only sticks as weapons. These guys were the badasses of their time. So the shepherds in the Nativity probably looked less like the angelical choir in the high school play and more like Hell's Angels. While we're at it, angels in the Bible are much more Lovecraftian than you imagine. Forget about slightly androgynous hotties dressed in wet tonics. If you saw an angel like they appear in the Bible, you'd probably shit your pants immediately. In Daniel 10, we can read what people at the time believed angels looked like. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, a certain man, clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Ophaz. His body was also like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. I don't know about you, but if one of those things told me that I should leave my woodwork shop and take my wife to give birth in Bethlehem, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't ask twice. Unless, of course, that I didn't have a woodwork shop at all. I know for certain that Joseph didn't. Don't believe me? Let's play a little game. Look at this picture. This is the landscape of Israel. Notice anything interesting? Alright, no problem. Let's look at this one. Or this one. What do they all have in common? There are barely any trees. Carpentry was never a big deal in Israel because there wasn't anything to work with. The few carpenters there could have been would only work with imported materials. They were probably very rich. But we know Joseph was not rich because of his offering habits. If we skip forward to Jesus' presentation in the temple, we see that his parents offered doves as gratitude. This was the commanded sacrifice for Hebrew people who could not afford a lamb to give away. So what did Joseph do, and why is he remembered as a carpenter? The answer lies in the Septuagint, the oldest compilation of the Bible as we know it today. In this version, the word used to describe Joseph's job is tekton, which is a general term for a builder or a craftsman. The job could include low-level carpentry, but it was usually laying bricks, repairing walls, or doing any other kind of masonry. Jesus himself gives us a hint at this. In one of his parables, he compares faith to a house built on a rock foundation and one built on sand. The meaning of the story aside, why would a carpenter be so familiar with architecture and yet never use a single metaphor about woodwork? We can even take a guess as to where Joseph worked. During Jesus' childhood, an hour away from Nazareth, there was a huge project to rebuild the city of Sepphoris, which was destroyed in the year 4 BC after the death of Herod the Great. Wow, this is tying up pretty nicely. This even explains how Jesus could spend so much time traveling around the country without staying at the family workshop. He was possibly commuting to work and preaching at the same time. Anyway, the reason why Joseph and Jesus were called carpenters instead of masons happens later, when the Bible was translated into the Latin Vulgate by Saint Jerome of Stridon. In that time, being called a construction worker was considered an insult, kind of how some people nowadays say that the worst thing that can happen to you is working at McDonald's. Jerome did not believe that Jesus could be insulted this way, so whenever the Septuagint refers to him as the builder, he translated it as the carpenter's son. He probably had good intentions, but we owe him another jewel in this story, which is the implication that Jesus was born in the parking lot of a hotel. We see the typical scenario every year. Joseph and Mary are traveling, but the innkeepers don't have any rooms to spare for them, so they send them to the stable. But by every standard imaginable, this would never happen in ancient Israel. Almost every culture in the Middle East had and still has a strong obligation of hospitality, especially in a time when denying a cup of water to someone could mean the difference between life and death. In reality, the innkeepers would rather give their own room to Mary and Joseph than sending them to the back, especially with a pregnant woman about to give birth. What happened then? Well, the Septuagint uses a very interesting word to refer to the inn. The word in this passage is katalima, which doesn't actually refer to an inn, but to a room or guest chamber where guests could stay the night because, again, hospitality. As the story goes, Mary and Joseph were in Bethlehem because of a census that required them to be at his town of birth, which means the most likely scenario is that they were staying with family. Since most families back then tended to be enormous, this would mean that when she gave birth, there was not a bed or crib to place baby Jesus without any danger. So they borrowed a manger, a feeding vessel from the stable, and made him rest there, surrounded by all his aunts and uncles. Elsewhere in the Bible, the word used for an inn is panohion, not katalima. Also, the wise men probably arrived like 2 years later and they really weren't 3. But that's not translation related, so you Google it. This video is already too long as it is. So what does this all mean? Were we all deceived? Is Christmas ruined forever? Should we never celebrate it again? Well, not really. Christmas is a tradition and it doesn't have to look exactly the same always everywhere. So maybe the scenario looked less like this and more like this. Who cares? That's not gonna ruin the holidays. In fact, it could even make it more fun. What if this year you try to make a more historically accurate depiction of the nativity scene? If you send pictures to my Twitter, I'll post them in the next video. If you want to learn more about the Septuagint, next video will be a crash course in how to learn Greek, so you can read it by yourself. Subscribe, like, share and comment, and I wish you the happiest of holidays. Thank you for watching. Cheers to you all!